Okay, everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Headlines, where me and my co-host here, Steve, we go through the headlines of the week. We try to figure out what's actually happening in the markets and try to figure out what's going on. I've got my trade ideas gear here too. There we go. I've got my Canadian trade ideas gear, which is a nice hoodie.
Getting
We're
cold.
past t-shirt weather up here now, unfortunately, but yeah, so big week in the markets, a lot of craziness moving on. I think probably one of the most insane days I've seen in a while, a couple days ago. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how we kind of handled some trades. We've got big news week too, so it wasn't hard to find news. So let's just pop right into it and we'll get started. Steve, how's the week short? And you wanted to chat a little bit about how you manage some of those positions
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. Well, I think when we left last week, I had taken a few shorts, and they worked on day one. But day two, I got right back to flat, so wasn't going to let them go negative on me. So swung the bat, but didn't really get anywhere. I sold them for no loss. I just wanted to let people know that I stayed true to my word that once they go against me, I'm not going to stick around and get stubborn. So that's a lesson to
that's
take.
yeah, that's the difference between a trader and someone just out there making wild calls. But um, and I got a whole list here of things to go through, so we'll definitely go through. I think a good one to start with the fact that dealing with things when they don't act like they should is this Adobe, right? So me and Steve were talking with this a little bit on our company Slack and said, "Oh, I think you said, oh, Adobe must have missed," and I said, "Geez, it was actually a beat." And so we see here, because I was just on Twitter, so beat EPS, so they made more money total than people thought they would, and their revenue was higher, and then they got absolutely shellacked, right? Down 8% now. This is actually way better than I think it was. Let's go to like a 15-minute chart. I think it was it's still a lot better than it was last night. I think they were down like 15 or even 20% at some point. So just getting killed. Uh, the biggest takeaway I have for this, and I know Steve will agree 100% on this, doesn't matter, right? Whatever this number is, doesn't matter. And if you're someone who is trading off this, you'll learn that very, very quickly. Because if you just looked at this and said, oh, right, they made more money than they thought at the bottom line and at the top line, they sold more than they thought, and they got killed like this, that to me is information, right? I would not get anywhere close to buying the dip here on Adobe. If anything, I'm going to be watching for a couple days to see if we get some consolidation for a potential short, because the oldest adage, the thing that I was taught, I remember when I first sat down on the trading desk, was the news doesn't matter, the reaction to the news is super important. If bad news comes out and the stock rips, well then that's probably a stock you want to be buying. If good news comes out and the stock tanks, it's probably a stock you're going to want to be shorting. So do you trade Adobe at all? Do you have any interest in watching this over the coming days?
I have not really traded Adobe in years. I don't know what I would do with this chart, quite honestly. So I don't normally trade $500 stocks as well. I like to get some bigger bang for my buck in levered ETFs and smaller caps. So no real opinion here other than you are correct. People try to. This is why you don't gamble into earnings. I mean, you can cheer the headline, but the reaction is completely out of your control.
Yeah. I was just Googling there to see if there was one of those inverse Adobe ETFs, but it
No.
must not be popular enough to see if there is a play. But yeah, I'm
Mm.
watching this closely. I think, from an options side of things, which I'm playing with a little more when I short, we've got a sell tag here on the trade wave, the new indicator we have here at Trade Ideas. That's had you buying in through here. If you're just following an algorithm completely, then you're out here. If you're a human with a brain in your head, you're probably selling right before earnings for a great trade. And now it's reversing. So I'm going to watch this over the next couple weeks. I like to trade these earnings gaps, but not I'd say not even 5 days later. I'm probably not even going to trade this next week. I want to see a week or so of action to take place.
Yeah.
And then if we get a breakdown after that, I think I'm going to short some Adobe just because when you beat top line and bottom line and you can't get going, then to me, that's a good place to hammer into the short side. You want to talk about my med next?
Yeah, sure. I can share my screen too because it's
Sure.
probably easier when I do my screen.
Time. I always just like a full disclosure. I am still in a little bit of mind med. I've been trading around. I know we were talking about this one way back at $5. I think was $5 the breakout of. Yes, it had this big rounded bottom going on. It broke out at $5. I've been essentially scalping around a core position that I still have from $5, buying as it spikes and then selling after that. So I just like to, I think it's good to tell people when you're in positions. But we'll just pop over to your screen. Oh, not that screen. That screen. Nope, not that one either.
No,
Where are we?
not that one either.
Oh, it is this one. Technical issues on the fly. Bam, there we go.
Okay. Producer, director, host. Okay, so let's turn off the weekly tab here, and we're just going to take a look. I kind of want to. I did this yesterday in my live session. Kind of went down memory lane on this thing. We were all over having fun trading this, or at least we both were. I was,
Hmm.
and then it broke right here, and I kind of just oh, I'm going to wait for the 50. Great, look at the 50 moving average comes in. All right, we're back in the game again, and then it broke and just couldn't get the 50. I just kind of gave up on this thing down here. It came back to life above the 50, kind of washed. I think it probably traded it a little bit, but very few stocks will I just hold forever. I know because I know I can trade around. I know that a situation will arise, and I think that situation has arisen. And so, as you can see, again, more levels of interest plus the earnings. I remember we're sitting at the 200 day. I thought, no position. Let's just wait and see what earnings have to say and how it reacts to the 200. And it gave up the 200. Guess what? I don't. I'm not watching MindMed now. I don't really care. It broke the 200. A big wick there. But all of a sudden, it started to have that price behavior that I was calling a bird in the hand, where it starts to break the intermediate downtrend
Hmm.
by, you can see it was dominated by the 10, 10, 10, 10, backstop 20, 10. Now all of a sudden, the 10 is curling up. We've got 2 days, including today, trading above both the 10 and the 20. And these are the kind of setups where they typically don't break immediately, but they'll kind of just slide sideways, and then you kind of get that pop. So I think what's happening is we're going to be in for a big headway of the convergence of the 50 and the 200. But the point being is a trade around. What gets you in and out of a trade around? I'm back in MindMed. I love the way we've got clean air here above these two moving averages, which had been dominating it. Yeah, I could probably wait and see if it wants to clear the 200 and the 50, but I'm okay with taking a victory here on the shorter term moving averages and trying to anticipate and be early.
And take a look at that while we have this on your screen. Take a look at that short float. I'm sure you've noticed that 36.4%
I
on
have
that
not
name.
paid attention to that as
And
much as
that
I should.
that on a early stage biotech to me it gets pretty wild. You if you have something like this where if any sort of positive news comes out and you're knocking on the door of half of the shares outstanding being borrowed short at that point. And if they come
80
out
million.
with anything,
Okay.
right? 40 million people. And this is why I love. So, right next to that short float number, we have days to cover. And I always like to explain days to cover to people, which is 13 days. And essentially, days to cover is you take, so Steve was showing there's about 80 million shares outstanding. Let's just, because I'm still working on my
70
second
million on the
coffee
flip.
of the day, right? Let's say 30 million of those shares are out there borrowed. So, what Days to Cover is saying is that if all of those people, all those 30 million shares had to buy to cover their position, based off current trading volumes, it's going to take them 13 days to cover their position. So it's basically a volume normalized short float. right? Where sometimes you'll see stocks that only have a 5% short float, but it's like 20 days to cover because the stock isn't traded very much. And in this case, yeah, with 13 days to cover, I've noticed it a lot on my short float list. And like we want to talk about, the new trade wave indicator that we've built here, you can see it ticking a little buy symbol today. This trade wave indicator, it's funny, it's trading a lot like Steve always talks about. If the short term moving average is above the longer term moving average and price is above both of those, then it's saying you should look to get involved somewhere around here. And then when the opposite happens, the short term moving average is under the longer term moving average and priced under those, it's time to get out. And what I love about it is, like any indicators, no magic, but it's going to keep you in the stuff that's working and it's going to get you out of the stuff that's not working for you.
So there you have 25 years of staring at charts, 40,000 hours. I can see that with my naked eye, but most people can't. They don't
Hmm.
have 40,000 hours. The trade wave is a way to incorporate and encapsulate those setups that you might not otherwise see as a newbie trader. And in the process, you start to just get imprinted on these same setups. It's a trip. What I'm saying is it's a great learning curve for a new trader. You start buying those buy tags and you start to see, oh, look at, I see what they're seeing now, and you start to see beyond the actual bands and the clouds and the actual price action itself.
Yeah, and there's a lot of study done on moving average systems. We know that moving average systems are going to perform amazing if the stock is trending, and not so well if you're trading something that is entirely range bound. So the thing that I'm loving about this is, as we're going through these headlines, all I need to look for now is something that I believe has a chance to start trending. And then as soon as I'm like, okay, I think MindMed has a chance to start trending because it's, this early stage pharmaceutical. I like where this is on the weekly chart because it's kind of come back down to, not quite, but close to this breakout area that has occurred kind of right down here. So I think this could be a long term cup and handle type of thing. Whatever your idea is, it systematizes the entry and exit. You could say very simply, I'm going to buy it as long as it remains above these moving averages. I'm going to hold it. And if those moving averages break, I'm going to get out. Right. So here on MindMed, it would have been kind of right here at like 850 when those moving averages finally kind of gave way and you got a couple closes below it. You could have shorted at the short tag and then you could be covering again. So it's just an interesting.
As you
uh,
were speaking, I decided to add to the position, and I should have said on the onset that that's like a one third, one half position to start with. You just kind of dip in and see. I'm encouraged with the way the last 2 days have gone here, so I want to add to it, but I'm not going to add to it at highs. So I just put in a limit order about 7 cents below and get a midday pullback, and everybody's happy. I get my price, and I don't feel like I chased something.
Well, and I'm obviously gonna hope that this works out well for you as a holder. But yeah, I've been doing the same thing that you have, right? I remember the last trade I took on this one. I have that $5 core position. I bought a little bit more. I think when it broke kind of in this area right here, around seven something, and then scalped out a little bit at around nine when it looked like it was gonna fade. So this is something you'll see people do often. And I really want to kind of hammer it in because we do talk about it every week, but you generally won't see traders say, I like NVIDIA. So I'm going to buy NVIDIA and I'm going to walk away and take a nap. What they'll say is, I like NVIDIA, maybe I like the AI play, and then they start to build plans. I'm going to buy NVIDIA if it does this, this, and this. I'm going to take some of my profits. I'm going to wait because nothing ever moves up or down in a straight line. So if you're a trader, and you believe that you can trade around a core position, in the long run, you're going to make way more money, right? Because I was buying this at 5, I was selling it at 10, now I'm buying it back at 6. And so if it does go to 20 or 30 or even higher, I will have done better than someone who just bought and hold because I'm in. And if it doesn't end up doing those, the amount of profits I've taken from these trade around positions have paid for the position at this point.
What does it say about Tesla on the trade wave? Is there a buy tag in there? Because it's nice consolidation here. And I was talking last week how I've changed my tune on Tesla. So I say, I like Tesla, but do I buy it here?
Yeah, well, there was a buy a couple days
Or
ago, so
that
like
pullback? Okay.
220. And
So
it hasn't triggered.
it's still building the positive color in the cloud. So, I mean, technically you could say, I could take a chance here.
And this is where I would combine something like this indicator with basic technical analysis because you don't want to be trading it when it's just in this choppy range. But yeah, it's starting to break above that range right now. So I would look at it and say, okay, well, the last trade was a buy. So that means Trade Wave kind of agrees this thing has a chance to go higher. And then just mark some recent highs, right? Maybe just get involved. This red
Hmm.
candle probably trapped in a lot of shorts. Maybe if we start to
Hmm.
break that red candle, those shorts cover and start to go long, that might be an interesting way. Again, combining general technicals and then indicators on top of them to try to like systematize a lot of what it is you're looking at. Now, let's pop into the next one here. Let's take a look. So, Timu and Cheyenne is getting cracked down. Where essentially they were abusing a trade loophole. So I looked into this a little bit already, and we're going to look at Pinduoduo, which is kind of the, I guess, an Amazon or a giant retailer in China. The reason I looked into this personally already is because there was a lot of people buying a lot of baby and a lot of toddler things for the family and saying they got them from Timu. And I found all of these stories of people testing them and seeing like mercury and all of this
Lead poisoning.
lead poisoning and all this gross stuff. Because what's happening, and the reason that Timu and the Shin is so cheap, is that there was some law in the states where anything over X amount of volume when it was shipped into the states had to have all these regulations to them, and then there was a tax applied to it as well. So what these guys were doing is they were just shipping like these micro packages. That's why the shipping times were much longer than anything else you get from China. So there was a law to basically try to keep people safe. They found a way around it and they started to abuse that for a period of time. So it looks like this is just a simple, you know, it's time to close this loophole. I don't know why this would be affecting Pinduoduo the way it is because that's they don't appear to be doing this. So this might be one of those cases where this was a baby out with the bathwater, as we call it in trading, where they were throwing this Chinese stock out because these other Chinese stocks were getting targeted.
Remember that headline? The floorboards, people were buying floor planks, or uh,
Oh yeah, that was a lot. Yeah, lumber liquidators.
yeah,
Was that the?
yeah. I don't. I think that was it. Can't
It probably
recall,
doesn't exist
but
anymore.
yeah, but they yeah. So if you if you want to learn from that, I don't know. Um, Toxic floorboards coming from China.
Yeah.
I don't know much to say about this. These are just headlines. The charts look bad. The clouds tell us stay away.
Hmm.
Actually, that is a buy tag, isn't it?
I
We
actually
keep we
I
get
actually already sent that one over to the devs because I'm
yeah.
like that shouldn't,
I know.
because the cloud is still
No.
showing sell.
Okay.
And
Beta folks.
yeah, so again, I would do the same thing with a lot of these charts. If you're interested in them, right, wait for the cloud to turn blue, wait for a move above the cloud. The same kind of reason we were talking about last week with Intel, which as a as a trend trader, I obviously am not interested in this, but I gotta think this massive company is going to bounce at some point. So I'm just doing the same thing, right? Same kind of trade that I would do on something like Pinduoduo or China. If you think these things are kind of overdone with what's happening in the news, I'm just waiting for. I check this every day, and the day that I see a buy ticket, I'm gonna pick some up. But until then, I think you stay away because you're right. These charts
Yeah.
look just gross, gross, gross. All right, now Boeing. Poor, poor Boeing, I guess we'll say, but just continuing to have bad news after bad news after bad news. So there's some sort of strike going on, and it looks like the deals have broken down between workers and management. So that's more bad news for Boeing. It's one of those that, right?
Mm.
It's this going to be the same. I think we're going to say as Intel and Pinduoduo, and we were talking about with CrowdStrike, is when a chart looks like this, you need very, very strong evidence in order to start getting involved, right? You can take these little bounces that occur as long as you understand that you're against the prevailing trend. Yeah, you can take these little pops, you can take these little bounces, but I just look at this and say, okay, well, the last thing you want to get into is, strikes and all of this, because you have no idea how long this stuff's going to go for. You have no idea how long it's going to affect production. and the chart just kind of sucks anyway.
It's just consolidating right there under my 10 SMA and under the cloud. You're looking, it's just the resolution of that consolidation is not bullish, probably.
No, and you have to bet, and this is just trend trading, right? This is why we always talk about trends, is the probabilistic bet, which is all we're doing, right? We're playing probabilities, is that this area right here is going to act as resistance, right? It was support right here. So we have buyers kind of trapped inside this zone. If this thing pushes lower, it wouldn't shock anyone. In fact, the surprise move I think would be for this to resolve higher. So that's Boeing again. More problems for Boeing and more reasons to stick with trends and to stay away from anything else.
Yep, agreed.
All right. So we wanted to talk a little bit too. You wanted to chat a little bit about
Uh-huh.
this
Yeah,
XRP
this is
Grayscale
exciting.
trust going on here.
Hmm. So I've mentioned in the past episodes why I like XRP. I think Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP will be, like the leaders of our new digital economy. The reason XRP is appealing is because it's cross-border transfers. Just to give an example, a guy a $50 million hedge fund deal sent to Europe normally would take the SWIFT system maybe a couple nights, 3 days to get the money there and converted currency to currency, fiat to fiat. Um, he did it in 5 seconds and paid 30 cents. Quite the astonishing deal. So XRP is owned by Ripple. Ripple has been spending years in the shadows watching Bitcoin evolve and maybe learning from a few mistakes or copying a few things along the way. But Ripple has been extremely busy creating deals and partnerships globally with financial institutions all over the globe. And they're doing it the right way. They're not coming in saying, "Hey, we're the new kid in town. We're going to kick down doors. We're going to beat you all." No, they're saying, "We're going to work with you all, and we have a great solution." So, as the world tokenizes and digitizes, and commodity and assets become on the blockchain, which I believe will happen, we're talking artwork, properties, bonds, stocks, any type of asset that can be on somebody's balance sheet will go on the ledger. And as you transfer ledger to ledger payments in different currencies, XRP is the grease that greases that wheel. Now, what's happening here is this company has created a private placement, but it's the first step of a ETF. It's an
Hmm.
ETF private place, but it's probably going to be something open to the public very soon. It's interesting the way they've structured it. Each share in that ETF owns, I believe, 19.9 tokens of XRP. Michael and I were having a discussion as to what's going to boost the price of XRP back above a dollar. It's been pinned under this dollar, and I maintain it's probably just a normal adoption of the new financial system. There's a lot of supply out there too that Ripple can continue to dump on it. But once things start getting going, like ETFs and more transactions, there's a bunch of bonds that were put on the XLRP ledger. Um, we're talking maybe possibly quadrillions of dollars globally in assets, maybe 5, 10 years from now. And we don't have to have a token price of XRP that matches that based on the shares outstanding, because one XRP can probably turn over hundreds of times a day. But as the need for more assets on the blockchain become expanded over the years, a higher token price would facilitate easier transfers rather than having to use 100 tokens. Maybe you only have to use 10 tokens to facilitate a transfer. And what's interesting, and we didn't even go this far yet, Michael, is what I hope for my XRP is that you basically turn them into um, working capital for you. You take the XRP out of your digital wallet and you
Staking,
put it
yeah.
in the escrow staking. Thank you, and
Yeah.
you allow your XRP to become liquid for these transactions over and over and over and over, and you get paid for it. So not only is there an underlying value in the token, you're getting a residual income. So that's my hope for the future. We're one step closer now with this ETF coming with this private placement. The SEC case is they're still one step away from. They're waiting for the SEC to just say, "Okay, we're not going to appeal." And
Well,
Ripple
and
has agreed to pay a fine.
what's really
Go ahead.
cool is because it's grayscale, and that's why I brought up this particular chart, is grayscale had the original Bitcoin Trust. Before there was
Okay.
Bitcoin ETFs, before there was Ethereum ETFs. That's why this chart, you look at something like IBIT, that chart doesn't go back very far because a lot of these companies just waited until they had ETF access. So what GBTC did with Grayscale is they said, okay, well, before it's a ETF, we'll just make it a trust, which is just you're investing in this company, and basically all this company does is hold crypto. So it's a little bit different in the way that it has to work in the back end. But they were the Bitcoin ETF before there was a Bitcoin ETF, and now that for a while it traded par. There was some arbitrage that you could do because it was par value. Now this has kind of converted over into an ETF. But it's interesting just to see when you mentioned it was Grayscale, I got more interested because these guys aren't new, right? These are
Mm.
they had this again. This chart goes back to 2015, and you can see a participant. They held Bitcoin in 2016, 2017. So these guys are nearly 10 years in the business of going back and forth with the SEC and making sure all the documents are filled out and everything's,
Mhm.
custodialed correctly and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the fact that it is Grayscale that's doing it, I think is very interesting because, again, if it was XYZ company that came out of nowhere, I'm like, well, you're not going to be able to deal with the bureaucracy that is the SEC. But with Grayscale doing it, and Grayscale has, I think they do ETHE, yeah, so they had an Ethereum trust as well, and you can see this one, how long this one went back to 2019. So they've been doing this for a very long time, these guys. So it's very, very interesting to,
Good to know.
yeah, to see that it's not these guys' first rodeo. That they've been doing
Mm.
this and dealing with this for 10 years, and never had an issue, never had a hack, never had a anything. I've heard the CEO interviewed on different podcasts. Yeah, so these guys are the real deal for sure.
Cool.
Uh, Last thing I want to do just before we take off, a very quick pat on the back about GameStop. I figured I had to, right? The Cat Man came back when we were talking last week. I told everyone just to chill,
Mm.
and it turns out they're losing more money and they diluted shares more to retail. So sorry if you're someone who's holding this, but just like AMC, when you have a company that's losing money and you have a cult that's propping up your price, you're just going to sell to that cult. That's exactly what's happening here,
Can
unfortunately.
I pat myself on my back too?
Yeah, sure.
The trade of the week was eBay. And I said eBay is compelling because it's a
Mm.
recessionary, inflationary stock. People saving money on the buy side and people creating money, pulling stuff out of their closets and electronic and selling them on the sell side to raise money. Everybody's trying to raise money, and eBay seems to be the fence that people are going to. The chart confirms that story. So it was the trade of the week. I loved that consolidation we had, and it's Friday. This has been a good week for the trade of the week followers.
And yeah, definitely make sure you're signing up for that. It's free, right? Steve works
Mhm.
all Friday and sometimes through the weekend to get a good idea that is sent to you. We've tracked them. They outperform the market if you're investing in that because they're trade ideas. Now, speaking of trade of the week, so I'm teasing a little bit because we have been talking about this trade wave quite a bit. The natural question that we're getting a lot on it is how do I know what's turning into a buy and sell? So I'm working in the back end now to build scans that will show you on a day intraday chart and a daily chart and a weekly chart what's hitting buy and what's hitting sell. And as I was doing that, right when I was just kind of prepping, doing a little bit of work before this podcast, I saw Fubo pop up, and this is some sort of TV alternative.
Mhm.
And you can see the buy tag that happened right here. I like this chart on top of the fact that TradeWave's telling me to buy it. I like the fact that we have 11% short float going on there as well. So a lot of things going on, but just to kind of tell people, because I know there's been questions on comments to the podcast and other videos that people are seeing on the channel. They love the indicator. They want to know. They want to be alerted when a buy happens. This is what I'm seeing on Fubo. Looks nice, and yes, very soon on your channel bar there will be day trading trade wave, swing trading trade wave, and investing. That will be kind of weekly chart on the trade wave. So any thoughts on Fubo here and trade
Yeah.
wave
Speaking
picking?
of, well, the high of today and yesterday, you can't see it, but it's the 200-day moving average. So that's pinning it down. Anything above that
Mm,
is a go in my book. But I love the buy tag. and I think you may have just saved me a lot of homework for the trade of the week. I wrote it down.
It's good.
I
You
like it.
know, 11% short
It might,
float. Um,
well, it might be a great write up to talk about the trade wave and how it was found. Yeah.
Yeah. So just again, I go onto the channel periodically. I know Steve answers a lot of the comments. I do as well. A lot of people saying I love this, but I need a scan. I need a scan. It's a little bit complicated just because of a lot of the internal math that goes on. But just know I'm working on it, and we will have something out for you for sure when it comes to that. So, anything else to leave the kids before we go?
No, no. See you next week.
See it same time next week. Hopefully next week is as interesting as this one. I like this back and forth in the market. I don't like just boring uptrends forever, and I don't like crashes. I like this kind of craziness that goes on. It's more fun for us anyway. All right,
Well,
guys.
we're in the months for it.
See you next week.